Happy Friday. Welcome back to Recoup. Today is Friday, January 23rd, 2026. It's our Friday weekly check-in where we recap what we have built this week and talk about what we're going to be building next week. Kicking it off how we always do, as long as Sid can unmute. In one word, how you feeling today? And in one sentence, what do you need today?
I'm feeling content. What do I need today? To set clear direction for Feb.
Sounds good to me. End of the month, start of the new month. For me, I'm feeling locked in and I need feedback. Well, Feb direction will probably influence it, but I need feedback on what I've built so far with Pulse.
Nice.
Do you want to start off talking about February direction, contract, review what's been merged?
I guess we could just start off with contract. Or is it contracts like meaning February direction?
Yep.
I've been feeling good. How have you been feeling?
Just said it. I feel very locked in. I'm able to focus entirely on Recoup this past month. Be able to write more on it. Anything that comes up, I'm able to pick it up and work on. Feels like my entire head just can stay on Recoup. And then outside of that, I'm reading more. I read a book in January, Naval's Almanac. I've now started reading Richard Feynman's one of 6 Easy Rules on Physics, and one of Ted Chiang, a really famous sci-fi writer. I'm reading one of his book of short stories. So I've been exercising, eating well, I've been cooking my arepas and huevos pericos, so it feels like all aspects of my life are doing well right now. So the main question is on your side, how is it looking from you on the work I've been delivering? What differences have you noticed with me spending without me dividing my attention to Kubrick's?
Good question. I've also felt the impact of your focus, the ability to spend more time reviewing code when needed, and the patience to work through with me, or if I need to huddle or whatever, which has been helpful. And also, like, I feel like the context switching. I feel more of the ability to slow down and let code reviews happen because you've been willing to say, like, do you need me to take this over? Whereas previously, I would just merge stuff because I wasn't sure how long it would take to get to the finish line, when it's out of scope of like what we had originally planned. And so being able to have that, being able to have the comfort to know that, like, if this doesn't ship today, we'll get to it. It's not going to take another week, which has been great if it's important enough. So I think it's been great. I think that if there's anything like if we want to close the loop on what we initially started this question on, is like, do we want to continue in February? I say yes. I think you're on the same boat as me, correct?
Yeah.
Great.
Yes,
and then, like, the question then becomes, like, what in this new way of working worked and didn't work, and how can we, like, improve the new model even more? Because I know that there was like a lot of little bugs and things that we had a plan on starting at the beginning of the month to get Pulse done. and I know like by the end of the month now, like you're just starting to work on it. So like fires had come up and things of like customers' questions and stuff like that. So part of me is like, I guess my question is like, what should we continue that path in February? Should we define more of the standards of what requires you, I guess, versus what I can just try to ship on my own? But I don't know. It's still a learning thing. So I get your feedback on it.
Clear Feb direction. Do you have any, are those the points you want to orient the conversation around to have a clear direction for February is what worked and what didn't work?
Yeah, correct. And like, I guess to have a clear direction of February based on what we learned in January of like our expectations of what we want to ship, because we know it'll improve the product versus like what customers demanded throughout the month that strayed us a little bit, right? And so like thinking through how do we plan for those in February? How do we make room for it while also making room for the stuff that we know the customers aren't going to request immediately, but it will benefit them once it's finished.
Anywhere you want to kick off to just lay down the direction of what worked or what didn't work?
I would love to hear you kick it off.
Let's time box it till 10 minutes on the live clock. So another 3 minutes. Is that okay?
Deal.
What worked? When Sid gave me feedback or when he pushed back, I felt like I had more space to hear that and deal with any emotional reactions I had to feel like I'm right or like the product works, being more open to if Sid's telling me this, it's not working for him. And if it's not working for him, it's not working for others, and being able to silence my ego a little bit more and just hear what you're saying. And like you probably saw in a thread once, you had given me a piece of feedback and then I replied like, that's going to be included in this. And then I immediately like backtracked and was like, keep it coming. I'm sorry I pushed back. And like, I want to continue to work on that of when you're giving me things, be able to just hear it, write it down and not react to immediately, and understand that you want to make the product better. And now that I have this space, not trying to hyper prioritize so much, but giving that space open of anything can get put down on the page of things that need to get done. So didn't work is my ego is still pretty loud. What did work is we had space for me to be able to diverge and pick up tasks. I think you being okay with doing the first part of it and then handing it off to me, I think is an okay cycle. It allows you to build things that you want and then hand it off to me. So worked, I think handoffs between you and me and our LLMs worked well. Another thing that worked is our mono repo, being able to now have a mono repo and start adding skills in it and structures for how we build. What didn't work is my ego is still loud and I still have work to do personally. I'd say we worked being flexible. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that not getting Pulse all the way out the door was bad. I think it was good that we were able to hear where something wasn't working. The create new artist flow is core to the product, and it's every single new customer sees that. And us being able to pause on a new thing and make sure everything else is stable is important. We were able to we've now fully transitioned into the chat being in the API. Worked was that you didn't force me to roll it back, but what didn't work is us doing enough testing beforehand to catch the bug that memories weren't being saved. So
agreed.
So
I double down on that. I tend to double down. I think there was also other stuff that when we moved it broke. For example, like pinned artists is broken. Some other little things that like we weren't thinking about. I think what worked is that we shipped the change, noticed the inaccuracies of our ability to test when migrating things. So like building that infrastructure smarter when developing new features. So we know like if we ever need to do anything, we need to be able to monitor if things break before the customer finds them. or Sid finds them because he's trying to do something for the customer, right? But I also think it's like we wouldn't have noticed that issue if, I guess we would have noticed. I don't know, but like you know what I'm saying? Like we had to break to be able to see it that it's broken. If we would have pulled back and didn't migrate or went back to the old thing, I think that just would have like set us back. So I guess like the question then becomes of like what I'm trying to think through is like it's easy at I'll stop there. I agree with we need to
Reflecting, I should not have merged it, or as soon as the bug came up, we should have reverted it and brought us back to stability. It would have been slower, but it would have resulted in fewer down things and less hot fixes being merged to prod.
The question is like, I agree with you in a sense. The thing that the question I want to orient around is like, even if you reverted it, would you have noticed that pin chats weren't working when you redesigned it? You know, like, or like all the little things. And so that's the main question: is how do we set it up? Is there a way to set it up, or do we need to set it up where if things we can know when we can know when things break? Like is errors still working now that we migrated? Like, do we still get error notifications? You know, like all those little things that we spent engineering time last year building, and it's now like not working. But anyways, I think it's a learning experience. Okay, cool. I know we're at time, so let's move to the next thing, which is what we now know what worked and what didn't work. Let's talk about February, and then from there we can dive into work. Or actually, before we talk about February, why don't we share what shipped, where you're at with Pulse, so because that'll kind of be a deciding factor.
Yeah, we'll go into breaking news. Would you mind testing? Would you mind sharing screen and going over to chat.recoupable.com/pulse? And everything you're seeing there was built this morning. So this is the first time that we're going to get feedback on it. The main point I would like you to look at are the cards, the structure of the page, and when you click on a card, only design. Nothing is functional right now, only designs.
I like it. How do I get back? All right, there we go. Give me a second. Let me do one of these. So like if I say hi, nothing happens?
It'll show an error.
Got it. Nice. All right, but yeah, I think designs are good so far. I mean, you want to like stupid feedback?
Mike, yeah, anything on the cards, go ahead with your stupid feedback.
If this picture is too light and it's white, you're not going to be able to read it. So in the ChatGPT version, they have I pull it up. Where am I? And I sent you the images. I know it was too late because you built it already, so like you didn't get it. But in ChatGPT version of Pulse, oh well, this is the cards on desktop.
Yeah, show it on mobile. There you go.
Cards on mobile, but they put the image inside of that, so it's like always readable against that.
Text doesn't overlap with the image.
Yeah. The other option, which I can only show you, actually maybe I can. Give me a sec. Let me find it on here.
Do you want that? Do you want text to not be on the image? Have it
I
below?
like the text on the image, but let me show you how Perplexity does it on Discover, which is similar. Oh no, they do the same thing on mobile. It's different. Oh, that's interesting. This is Perplexity's version of their, they call it Discover, which is just news articles daily. So it's the same kind of design of like card and then little thing here. I'll give you one more design fun thing and you can decide from there. On their mobile app, Perplexity, this might be a little bit more involved. Can you see my, oh no, they changed it. Then what is it on ChatGPT's mobile? Let me see. Now I'm just designing, now I'm just going into design bullshit. Let me see. Pulse. Oh, okay, here, yeah. So it's only on ChatGPT mobile. I'll stop sharing and I will show you from here if you can see. Can you see? The color of the bottom, the color of the bottom is reflective of whatever the image is. So this has some green in it and it's like this gradient of green, bluish, that color. So like if you want to get a little bit more crazy with your design, but I don't think it's necessary, but you could just see the difference of the mobile version versus desktop. I think the desktop version is fine where it's just.
We'll just get the text off of the image.
Yeah, put it in a card under the image. And that way, like, we never have to worry about it not being readable because the image is white where the text is white. Unless you want to do like a, no, it's easier the other way. So fuck it. Let's just keep it that way.
Cool. So from here, other than that, so far this week, it's been focusing on fixing bugs. 1 week ago, I merged the migration from our chat to move from the front end to our API. That caused breakages. So Monday through Thursday was pretty much fixing breaks. And then today I was able to make those advancements on the UI side. Tossing it back to you, do you want to talk about what you'd like to see for February? Quickly to close it for me, the quarterly goal that I have written is have email and SMS clients. And then we've also added in TikTok, upload and publish with Compazio. We're wrapping up January. We still have February and March for the quarterly goals. Email outbound is good. I'm sorry, email inbound is good. Proactive outbound is what we're working on. We have not started SMS clients. We have not started TikTok client. Knowing that, what are your ideas on the direction you want us to head in February?
I think proactivity is essential. So continuing on the path of Pulse and building that in a way that gets value to the user. And then talking with the users about what kind of pulses do they want and how the pulses need to change based on the artists that they're focusing on is going to be a big, big one. If we can get that right, it's a music product that I feel like everybody would want, is a pulse on your roster that is really smart. If we can get this right, I would buy it as a customer. Like, you know, so, and I think our customers would really like it. And it's the bedrock of like where we want to go with SMS. It's also the bedrock of like when an agent knows what's going on and what's important to the user at the time every day, it will be much easier for the agent to hand off tasks to sub agents to go do work but they need to know what's important for it to be there. So I think Pulse and like that process is really important for February. I think something that I learned last week or this upcoming week, I'm sorry, the last month is TikTok is important. It's going to be easier than I thought to integrate. It's just going to take some deep focus of getting it right and then code review. So it's more of like just like a time thing rather than like difficult thing. But what was requested before TikTok was Docs integration, Drive integration. And so I pushed a PR for that yesterday, which is waiting for review. Fingers crossed that it works, because if so, like it's really easy to integrate Composio tools at the account, the user, like, you know, customer account level. Where I need to figure out the architecture for TikTok becomes when I want to give Gatsby Grace, the artist, and TikTok Composio tooling for that specific account, regardless of the user. I know Composio can do 2 accounts, but like the question becomes like, should we give Gatsby Grace her, like, should we just pass that account to Composio, rather than having the user connect different 2 account, like multiple accounts? I think that's actually, I'm talking it out, that's probably the route to go. Is just treat Gatsby as its own user. And then we have to like think through, like, I'm thinking about in artist settings having a separate tab for connections, so you can connect the artist's socials that way, similar to how we have connections for the user, but like separate them. And then that way I can connect TikTok with Gatsby, and it'll be just like we have our YouTube one. It's separate from the user's YouTube, but like making that design easier. And then I feel like once we get that sorted, it'll be cool, because we'll be able to post on TikTok. We'll be able to do that, and we can start to build out the automated on behalf of the artist stuff. Other than that, the other big thing that I'm trying to solve right now is where to keep a templatized release strategy that we can use across all artists. So we created one that's templatized. It's just like, it's literally the Google list of like what needs to be filled out as things go, et cetera. I showed it to you a couple of weeks ago, right? That I made with Alexis. The question then becomes, currently, every artist that she has, when she starts it, she uploads that template to their artist knowledge base, and then says, create a template based on this one for my artist, and then saves it to the knowledge base. So she's still trying to figure out file management, and do I save it in knowledge base, or what do I have to upload it? And so my thought is like, should that be a skill? And how do we give our customers the ability for the LLM to see skills? Because then it could just, if she says I need to create a marketing campaign, a release campaign, it will call that skill. It'll know that template. It'll have all of the tools available, and it'll do what it needs to do. So that's the big question mark, is like, how do we, one is, should that be a skill or a tool? 2 is, how do we enable it for our like Recoup skills versus customer specific skills, versus artist specific skills, and like, what's our skill stack and how do we do it, is the big question mark moving forward.
I think the core primitive that unlocks that is sandboxes, so that everybody can have file system with Bash. If every artist or every account or every org has a file system, inside of that file system they can install their skills. Inside of that file system they can store their mood boards of their reference images. It runs Claude code. It can generate their videos. They say run the skill, it runs the skill. They say install a specific skill, it installs a specific skill. They want to create their own skill, they create their own skill. It lives inside of their sandbox. And it's not possible. Can you still hear me? Can you hear me now? Testing. Can Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can. Yeah, back now.
Okay. Something we learned this past week is that other teams building customized sandboxes just aren't good. The products that they're building are vibe coded and they don't work for the feature set that they're selling us, and they're building for more general audiences. So rather than using those, it makes sense for us to build it ourselves. I still plan on building on top of Vercel's sandbox, the same as the other companies we were planning on using. I think that's going to unlock a lot of things. And so that's not something we have in our quarterly or annual goals, but something I would like to be thinking through and adding in is how are we integrating Sandbox for our own internal coding agent, as well as part of our product so that, like you say, when Alexis talks to Recoup, she has her own file system, she can install her skills, and it becomes flexible for her to use it however she needs.
So let me give you this feedback on that, or challenge that with another question. The customer is currently trying to do it with our product now, and it's causing friction for them having. When I say friction, I mean like it's not the experience that I know it could be. I don't know if it's. I'll need to talk to her about whether is she using Recoup for it, like how's she using it with Recoup currently, and like getting. I know she used Recoup to make the marketing document for her thing. I know that like she's using it, but I'm like, I still. I need to learn how she's kicking off the marketing campaigns, where she's storing things, etc. The question though becomes the fact that customers are trying to get this done, should that increase the priority of sandboxing if that's the solution? Or is there another solution to making her experience better? Sooner. So I guess like that's the big question is, do we move sandbox to quarter 1 and replace TikTok, or like, because that's not even, or like, do we like, will we have to replace something else? Or is there another way to like make the customer feel like, oh, every week this thing gets a little better exactly for what I'm using it for? Thoughts?
We can prioritize Sandbox above Pulse if it's going to be something that impacts the customer directly. We can prioritize it.
Will Pulse be better with a sandbox?
It could be. Right now, Sandbox is very theoretical for us. We have thoughts of where we want it, but we need to define the spec. We need to define like, this is the things we need it to do. That way, when I build it out, we're building towards very concrete things that the customer needs. I guess one of those things is skills. It should support custom skills.
Should support custom skills, but I also I think we should start with like Recoup skills that are very opinionated, so that customers don't have to create them, but they have a good experience. Like they're already pre-installed skills.
Sandbox should have Claude Code on it. That way, all of our customers get the same builder tool that we have. Sandbox should have a file system, which I believe to be Git. And then the question is Git at the account level or the workspace level or the org level? What would be our default level for a file system to exist? Right now, how have you set up your file system? Is it at the artist? Is it at the workspace level, the account level, or at the org level?
It's a great question. It's at the org level with subfolders of, it's a monorepo. It's a monorepo of the org, which then has artists or workspaces. But I guess that's only because I can go back and forth. So that, I guess that's the question. It's a good question, is where should we, like, in theory, we want an agent to be able to work on an artist campaign. But if the artist is not selected, we want an agent to be able to understand the context of the label and work on the label, like, or give, insights for all catalog and responses. So it's like, at what point do we build the sandbox, or can sandboxes even talk to each other? It's a good question.
So the file system you're saying exists, our default file system level is at the org level?
I'm not sure. I'm just talking, and this is you asking me and me talk. Like, that's a question mark statement. I have not thought deeply about it. But I will give you the facts. Customers base conversations around artists because that's the current way we give the UI to them. We've been asked, well, what about holistically? Can I see my whole catalog? Can I get updates on all of my roster, like daily updates? Like, and so like that has been asked for and requested as well. So like there are like two levels to what the customer wants, like per artist and release level, and then holistically they want to know all of it, like what's going on with all of their artists, and can you do data analysis on all my catalog stuff that's going on. So both levels. It's almost like, let me give you almost another reference. The people in the trenches doing the rollouts want artist release level sandboxes and like, work being done for that release. C-suite and above, their bosses want to know what's going on with the 10 releases that are happening this month.
I think it makes sense then to have the org be the default. If you're logged in, if you have an org active, organization is the GitHub repository. When you create a new org, you're creating a new GitHub repository. If you have no orgs, or if you have your personal active, your personal account also has its own GitHub repository. All of these GitHub repositories are private inside of Recoup's GitHub organization. Inside of an org, there's an org.md, which is Recoup's top level version of a Claude.md that has information about the organization, which the C-suite and anybody can then say, update my org file to note X, Y, and Z, and it keeps the running rules for this org. So it has an org file inside of the org GitHub repository, and it has a workspaces folder inside of the GitHub repository. Inside of that workspaces folder, it then has Wiz Khalifa, Mac Miller, each of them have a subfolder inside of the workspaces folder, so that as someone working on a specific artist or campaign, they can talk specifically into that folder, and Claude Code knows to go into that workspace folder while keeping all the top level org rules in mind. And inside of each workspace, maybe each workspace has a workspace.md, and then that is the rules for this specific artist or this specific workspace. And then as it's creating images, those images get stored inside of the workspaces directory. Files that are generated when the org makes their high-level document of all marketing releases, that gets stored at the top-level org. And then whenever a workspace needs to use that template, it's a simple bash command to copy it, and then to start editing that file for a specific campaign or for a specific workspace. Thoughts on that architecture is where we start from?
My only thoughts, or my feedback or question would be from the C-suite customer saying, well, what if I don't want one of my users to be able to access my royalty financial data in my org? I just want like just permissions. That's the big thing, is permissions. Permissions and mistakes. If an agent deletes something accidentally.
Well, deletions will be handled because we're building on Git. So history of all changes is preserved inside of the Git history. So if something happens, you just trace through the Git history and restore to whatever commit has the last version of the file you want to restore.
Okay, good solve on that.
We can solve on mistakes. On permissions, if someone has access to a Git repository, they have access to everything inside of that Git repository. If you don't want someone to have access, I would create a different org. The lowest lift would be the C-suite has their own org of rostrum C-suite, and that's just for C-suite. And then there's the main org, which is for everybody. Would that work in the short term, or is that not acceptable? We need to permission level on top of Git.
I want to say yes, but I also realize that like you just came up with the solution in like a second, and maybe it requires more time to think about if that is the true solution or if there is a better alternative solution. Like, this sounds like it's important enough to give some space about architecture, especially if like we're moving towards this sandboxing thing and expecting the experience to be using sandboxes more often than just general chat. You're right. Like when is sandboxes being used? So I guess my question then becomes like, how much space do you need to really get sandboxes right and think through it? Like, is it something that we should put before Pulse, or is it something we should tackle after Pulse once we have that feature locked in and it's moving? Like, will you build Pulse, then build a sandbox, and then have to refactor Pulse because you're like, oh man, we have sandboxes now. We got to use that. Or like, I guess where's the primitive here? I cannot hear you. I cannot hear you. I still cannot hear you. Can you hear me? I can hear my computer sound. Let me just make sure. MacBook Pro speakers, yeah. Uh-oh. There it is. I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm on a hotspot on my phone, so that's probably why stuff's not working. So far for requirements for Sandbox, what I see are need to be able to install custom skills. We need to be able to have Recoup skills by default in all sandboxes. Needs to run Claude code. Needs to have a file system in it, likely powered by Git. Chat should be able to use tools that interact with the sandbox. Vercel already offers this out of the box. We can provide a tool set, plug in a sandbox, and then it can work. Your question was how much do we need to define, or how much time do we need to think? Action produces information, and so I don't think this is something we should try to ivory tower, plan out the best thing and waterfall build it. I think we start building it piece by piece, and with each new piece that we build, it'll give us information to inform the next step that we take and to be able to reflect on it. So I suggest next step is being able to have a sandbox that is interactable, I think, with the chat. So I should be able to run a query and say something like, what skills do I have? And that should it should spin up a sandbox, check the skills, and then the chat should reply based off of what skills are inside of the sandbox. I think that is the smallest next step, is me being able to ask a prompt into the chat, and then it interacts with it, spins up a sandbox, and then returns results that it got from the sandbox.
Cool. And the second question is, if you build Pulse now and then build sandboxes, will you end up having to refactor Pulse?
Ideally, no, because Pulse is going to interact with chat. And so if chat has tools for interacting with the sandbox, that also means that Pulse has tools for interacting with the sandbox. But that's a great question that we'll can again see as we're also building out Pulse. So Pulse is also this theoretical thing. And as we build it out, we get more information about it, which leads to more questions. So I recommend we focus on both of them, and I build out Sandbox and Pulse
Simultaneously.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll affect each other, and they all need context. I like it. And just focus on that for the next week and the next month is just like Sandbox, Pulse, infrastructure. How are we building this out? Go back to like the three things from customers is like, from an artist's release level, how do I make a long-running agents for this specific release? Number two, from the like executive level, how do I get information on my entire business and roster that I need? Number three is, how do we make sure permissions are set accordingly?
Do you have an example so far of where one of our orgs does not want files shared with members inside of the org?
New customer specifically requested that when it comes to accounting, royalty stuff. So immediately, no, but when we get to that, it will be. So that's why I put it number 3 to think through.
And we still have a whole other week in January. We're talking about February, but we still have one whole. February doesn't start until 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, but you know, we're gonna be back here the week before February. Oh, maybe not. I don't know. But regardless, I think yes, prioritizing Pulse and prioritizing Sandboxes is a great place to kind of spend your attention. And then obviously, I'm just going to send you a bunch of PRs, and you're going to have to review them, and then I'll send you a bunch of bugs, and you have to review them.
Yep. So we got 4 weeks in February. So far, my list is we want email Pulse, Sandbox V0, and SMS inbound and Pulse. First week is going to be, if I don't, I'm assuming I don't get anything done next week, which is not going to be true. But we get email Pulse the first week of Feb / next week, and Sandbox V0. Week 2 will be email Pulse feedback, and email Pulse and Sandbox V0 feedback. V0. Full week spent on email. And that'll be 2 in a more stable state where it doesn't need to be a big priority in the week. Any bugs? Week 3, we go into SMS inbound and Sandbox V0. And then the final week of February, we go into SMS Pulse and Sandbox V0. Month of February is Sandbox. First half of the month is on email Pulse, and then the second half of the month is SMS. Ideally, the infrastructure has been built so that we can speed run everything we built with email and just plug SMS in as a new webhook going inbound and outbound. So week 1, email Pulse and Sandbox V0. Week 2, email and Sandbox feedback. Week 3, SMS inbound with Sandbox. Week 4, SMS Pulse and Sandbox. I'm not saying Sandbox as though email and SMS live inside of Sandbox, saying those as 2 separate that are being built in parallel. Feedback on that plan for February.
I like it. Okay, final question. I know we have to wrap it up in 8 minutes. Unless you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, go ahead.
Can you jump into my PR that I opened and show me how you test without changing it to localhost and running servers, this 2 servers simultaneously?
You're talking about testing API changes?
Correct.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Sid gives me a PR. We then need to test it. This one is going to be, let's see how, first question is how is it exposed? Is it exposed probably through MCP?
No. This specific one, no.
Why not?
Because I think you changed it so that Composio is not through MCP.
Let's check by tracing it up the stack. We go into Recoup API, and then we go into app MCP route. This is going to call the register all tools. You're likely right. I believe it's set up tools for request. It gets the MCP tools, and then it gets the Composio tools. So Composio tools currently are not a part of our MCP. So that means setup tools is called inside of the general agent, which is used for the normal chat routes. General agent is inside of setup chat request. Setup chat request is called in stream and generate chat. So we need to be able to use it. So to do that, we go into conversation. Then open it up in get the preview. Once we have the preview, we go into Recoup chat. I should already have the file open. I might have just closed it. Here's the cons file. Close others. Change this URL to the URL we need to test. Now I can spin up the server locally, and then it works for me locally. Once I've tested it, it's finished. So now if I run my server locally for Recoup chat, I'm testing on your branch, but I don't need to push this change because this is just me testing the API in isolation. And then I test it locally. If it passes, I approve it.
So you change you change that in the constants file, that URL to the test branch or the test URL that the branch is, not the test URL, like the specific one before it's even merged to test, like before the preview branch. Okay.
Correct. This
then
allows
change-
me to not have to run multiple things locally, which allows me to run it faster. And it allows me to test on your deployed version, which is going to give me faster responses than if I run it locally and have multiple things running on my computer, degrading my hardware and slowing down our iteration cycles.
and then putting back to test once.
Yeah, once I finish testing, I just roll this back, or sometimes it'll get pushed when I'm doing Recoup chat changes, and then I'll tell Claude, roll back the changes to constants file so that it's this URL again.
Why would we not just merge into test? Oh, because we don't want to mess, because you might be merging stuff into test as well. And then we're testing two different things. I get it. All right.
If you really want to be able to override it with environment variables, we could also do process.env test URL, and we could add something in there. I didn't like it sneakily just getting put into something else without us talking, like, is this actually something that we want? Because right now I already have a path that works and I don't need to change this, but.
Well, so like just the question around it would be, if I want to tell Claude Code to test the PR, would it know to do what you just said to do?
If you write a markdown file and then say reference this markdown file, that tells you how to do it.
Okay, cool. So transcribe the last 5 minutes of this meeting, and then I will create a skill or a markdown file and tag it, or just add it to the claude.md at the end, like when testing stuff. API. Is it the same thing for non-API stuff?
You'll have to give me specifically what you're asking about.
Well, no, because like if you're shipping the API and you merge it, I'm saying like for testing the Recoup chat PR as well.
Recoup chat has its own preview link. So what specifically won't you get with the link Vercel already gives you?
Because if how would you test the Recoup chat that is referencing the new, or like the new files of that new API route?
You follow the single responsibility principle and focus on one change at a time, and know that API needs to get merged before chat. So you focus on getting chat merged, and once chat's been merged, that your question no longer applies.
Or API gets merged, and then it's okay. Got it.
Supabase first, then docs, then API, then chat. Merge those in that order, decoupling them so that the question of if I'm doing them both in parallel, no, don't do them in parallel. Do them one at a time in that order, and then your dev process gets simpler. Simpler dev experience means fewer complicated variables, leads to faster iteration cycles for our dev team.
Understood. All right, cool. Deal. Well, I have these two PRs open whenever you can get to them, but
I'll get to them right after this call.
Sweet. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Look at us now. I'm saying the ending.